How do you say いただきます in English? Being a speaker of both Japanese and English, I've been asked that question many times. And every time I try to answer that question, it's very hard because there's no equivalent in English. For those of you who don't know what いただきます means, it's something that you say in Japanese when you start eating something. The literal translation would be like, I shall take it, I shall eat it, or something like that. Like you're being humble, you're being polite to the person who has cooked that food for you, and also the life that has been sacrificed for that food to be made. Like if you're eating meat or fish, you are basically showing gratitude to the lives. いただきます. Thank you for the meal. So that's the concept, but in English-speaking cultures, we don't have that. Like, if you're Christian maybe, or if you're practicing some kind of religion that sort of has that kind of attitude toward, animal lives or like cooking, then you might have something particular to say before starting the meal. But generally speaking, there is no common phrase. So to answer the question, how do you say いただきます in English? It's just, there's no answer to it. There's no equivalent in English. You just have to give up. You might feel a little awkward, if you've grown up in Japan and go to an English-speaking country and maybe your friend or host family make you food and you feel like you want to say something. You feel like you should say something, like いただきます. But you can't think of anything in English because, well, it's actually because in English, we don't even think of saying something. It's not in the culture. It's not in the language. So it's okay not to say いただきます or anything like that in English. Also, there are words and phrases that we say in English and we don't in Japanese. For example, bless you. If someone in the same room sneezes, in English, you probably say bless you because that's like part of the culture. That's part of the, it's like a common thing. But we don't have that in Japanese. We don't have anything like that in Japanese. Like if someone sneezes, you just ignore it. Like you let them sneeze and don't respond. If you respond, maybe it's a bit embarrassing for them. So when I came back to Japan, after years of studying in New Zealand and the US, when someone sneezed, I'm like, oh, should I say something? Should I, wasn't there a word in Japanese to say in this kind of situation? I had no idea, but I felt really awkward not being able to say anything to the person who has just sneezed. Even if I had tried to say something, I wouldn't have come up with anything to say in the first place because there's nothing like that. There's no phrase like that in Japanese. It's not part of the culture. So my point is, if you're struggling with your second language, sometimes you have to pause, you have to think, you have to sometimes even stop altogether mid-sentence, and it's very frustrating because you want to say something but you can't because you don't know the word or phrase in English that's equivalent to what you want to say in Japanese. And many ESL learners think that that's because they haven't studied English enough or they are not good enough yet, right? But, well, if you are at the beginner's level, if you're just starting out, studying English, that may be true, you probably haven't studied enough or you're just not good enough yet. You will be good, but at the moment you're not. So maybe studying is a good way to go. But if you're at an intermediate level or even an advanced learner, then I think the problem lies more in the cultural realm instead of like linguistic. Instead of like language, second language, ESL realm. You know what I mean? Maybe the thing that you are trying to say in English just doesn't exist in English. Maybe the thing that you are trying to say in Japanese just doesn't exist in Japanese. It's just not part of the culture. If it's not in the culture, you just don't say it. Or even like you don't even think it. Like if you're a Japanese speaker trying to learn English, then probably, bless you, doesn't really come to your mind instantly when someone sneezes. And if you're a Japanese learner, maybe いただきます doesn't really come naturally either if you haven't really spent much time in Japan or being surrounded by a lot of Japanese people. So basically, culture affects how we think, and culture almost dictates how we speak. This video is sort of like a sequel to the one that I did before, 4 mistakes that ESL learners make, or something like that. I'll link to it in the description. Yeah, so in order to be like fluent in a second language, you have to also learn a second culture, basically. Language and culture are one package. But, and yes, there is a but, you don't have to internalize everything that's in the culture. You're learning a second language, you've grown up speaking a completely different language, maybe have grown up in a completely different culture, so you probably already have some kind of values and worldview, right? And part of that culture, that's your target culture, target language culture, there may be some things in that culture that you don't agree with. Like, for example, we have the word fireman. There are female firemen. So are they fire women? So we came up with the word firefighter, because they fight the fire and it's gender neutral, right? But there's still some people who say firemen instead of firefighters, or chairmen instead of chairpersons. Another example would be hysteric. The origin of the word hysteric is uterus, like as in hysterectomy. It's a medical procedure to remove the uterus from a woman's body. There are also some disableist words that we use, but without knowing how deeply disableist those words are. For example, we say lame to mean stupid or outdated. We say dumb. It also means stupid. And we say crippled to mean broken or malfunctioning. But these words originally mean very different things. Lame, it means you physically can't walk. Dumb, it means you can't talk. And crippled means you're disabled. So these words are originally about human abilities and disabilities. But we started using these words to negative effect. Same thing with gay. The word gay, well, initially it was something like fun, happy, good things. Then homosexual people started using the word gay to refer to themselves. They started calling themselves gay people, gays, gay women, gay man. And now, many young people use the word gay to mean stupid, it's not worth it, or like it means less valuable, right? Gay is less valuable, and I think that's very homophobic. So the difficult thing is that in order to learn a language, you have to learn the culture as well. But what if that culture is sexist, racist, homophobic, disablest, classist, blah blah blah? maybe there are words that have certain connotations that you don't agree with. Well, in that case, you can, of course, avoid using them, question them, and talk to your friends about them, or even confront someone who uses these words in a negative way. But, yes, there is a second but. You need to have enough understanding of the culture and the language to start questioning them, right? Like you need to know the connotations of a particular word, or the etymology of it, or at least some historical background. It's like a round trip. You start learning a new language, you start learning a new culture, you go this way, and then when you have enough knowledge and experience of the culture and language, then you can take a U-turn and start unlearning the language. You can notice some of the words of the language being sort of like homophobic or racist, sexist, disablest, and you can unlearn that. And I even think that people who speak a language as their second language probably have certain advantage in like noticing injustices that are sort of deeply embedded in the language and the culture. Like maybe native speakers don't notice them because they are so natural to them. So I think if you're learning a second language and you're sort of social justice oriented, it's really important for you and me to try to unlearn certain aspects of the language and the culture. Even though sometimes a second language is called a target language, like it's like a target, you want to learn that language, you want to be able to speak that language fluently, so it's a target language, but you don't have to trust everything in it. You don't have to internalize everything that's in the language and the culture. If you're an ESL learner, that's amazing. You have a different set of cultural values and worldviews. You can compare the new culture, your second culture, against that. If there is something in the new language that really irritates you or just goes against what you believe in, then that's an opportunity for you to point that out and maybe discuss it with your friends. I'm sure many of you, my viewers, are either bilingual or learning a second language. So if you have noticed something in your second language that's sort of, not right, like sexist, heterosexist, disablest, racist, ethnocentric, things like that, please let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know. Especially Japanese, because it's my first language. I'm a native speaker. There may be some things that I have never noticed before. Alright, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, give me a thumbs up if you're bilingual or learning a second language. I love it when someone shares my videos on Twitter, Facebook, and other places. So please do that if you like this video, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!